So round number 1 of the Road to UFC tournament, season number 3 of this year, did just take place over the weekend, and you can watch the replay on UFC Fight Pass. I have decided to do a breakdown of every single fight that did happen in the first round of the tournament, and then also give you guys my new predictions on who I think is going to win the entire tournament at the very end of this video, because they have changed after round number 1. Going into round number 1, it is very hard to predict a lot of these fighters because tape study can be pretty hard to come by, and a lot of them don't fight the highest levels of competition, which is the point of the tournament. The reason why the tournament is here is because it gives a lot of fighters from Asia the opportunity to fight against other fighters that are at the international level, and then ultimately the best one ends up winning and getting signed to the UFC. Notable winners of this tournament are Brinya Nakamura and Jung Young Lee, I would say the two most well-known ones, but Ray Saruya is going to be making his UFC debut on the Conor McGregor card, and he's kind of like Tatsuro Taira, so he's definitely a guy to keep your eye out for. But ultimately what it is it is 8 fighters in different weight classes, and they fight in a single elimination tournament over the span of quite a few months, and then the winner ends up getting a pretty decent UFC contract. I believe the contract is somewhat equivalent to winning the Ultimate Fighter, because not only is it like just one fight, you've got to fight multiple times. So pretty much 3 different Contender Series fights. Starts out with 8 fighters in the weight class, and then the winners move on, so it becomes 4, and then it becomes 2 in the finals. This was round number 1 that took place, and it took place over 4 different episodes with 4 different weight classes, and I'm going to break down very quickly every single fight that happened. I'm going to try and make it fast, and then at the end I'm going to give my predictions for the round number 2, or my early predictions, because by the time that the event happens will be in a few months, and also my predictions on who I think is going to win the whole thing. Another thing that happened as well were these bonus fights that kind of act like Dana White's Contender Series ones. And this bonus fight, the Contender Series fight, I guess you could say, for episode number 1, was Bhati Balati taking on Han Seol Kim. I did pick Han Seol Kim to win the fight, and he did not win the fight. He looked really good in the first round. It looked like he actually slept Bhati at one point, absolutely knocked him out, but ultimately wasn't able to get the finish. And then in round number 2 and 3, it looked like Han Seol Kim had just kind of slowed down a lot, and he wasn't really throwing volume anymore. He wasn't shooting for takedowns. It was weird. It was weird how he looked in round 2 and 3, but Bhati Balati ultimately withstood a massive round number 1 in Han Seol Kim's favor, and then was able to take over in round 2 and 3 by landing more volume and damage. I don't think he's going to get a contract from that performance, because I don't think it looked that impressive, but I think you could expect to see Bhati Balati fight in round number 2 on a bonus fight, or even get an opportunity on Dana White's Contender Series. The first fight that took place that was actually part of the tournament was Feng Xiaokan taking on Karan Singh, and this was the women's strawweight bout. Karan Singh just isn't a strawweight, she is an atom weight for sure. She weighed in at 110 pounds, and I don't think she cut weight. She was tiny compared to Feng Xiaokan, because Feng Xiaokan is 5'8" for 115 pounds, and she was really, really big compared to Singe. And pretty much just what happened was Feng Xiaokan just dominated the fight on the feet. She was landing bombs on Singe. Singe obviously wasn't as good of a striker as Feng Xiaokan was, and then Singe, I believe, went for a takedown, but because Feng Xiaokan was so much bigger than her, Feng Xiaokan just reversed the position and ended up on top and won by ground and pound TKO. The next women's bout that did not actually end up happening was Miki Matono versus Huang Fei. What happened was Huang Fei missed weight, and because it's a tournament, the person that actually made the weight just automatically moves on to round number 2. So we're going to see Feng Xiaokan taking on Miki Matono in a rematch as well, because Feng Xiaokan has beaten Matono in the past, and I do think Feng Xiaokan is going to be able to beat her again. Shin Haraguchi did fight against Jun Young Hong. Shin Haraguchi won the fight. He did it somewhat impressively, depending on how you look at it. But in my opinion, I don't think he looked amazing. If you guys are unfamiliar with him, I was actually picking Shin Haraguchi to win the whole tournament. He fought at lightweight last year, made it all the way to the finals, but ultimately lost to Rong Zhu. And in this one here, you can see his wrestling base. He's an under 21 international, world champion in freestyle wrestling, to my understanding, and a multiple time Asian freestyle wrestling champion as well. And he's a really good wrestler, but he doesn't have much else. He doesn't really have that much striking. He doesn't really have ground and pound. He doesn't really have grappling. And Jun Young Hong just wasn't really able to stop the takedowns. But I feel like once he does take on a guy that can stop the takedowns, or a guy that's landing damage, just the fact that he doesn't do anything with his wrestling is going to end up being something that is going to cost him in the future. The main event, I guess, of episode number 1 was Zhu Kangxie taking on Tatsuya Ando. I'm gonna put my hands up and say this. I don't think I've actually ever been more wrong about a fighter, aside from that fat Polish heavyweight Kevin Szywalski. But in my opinion, he looked really good on tape. He just didn't show up. What I saw from tape from Zhu Kangxie, I must have been watching the wrong fights, or I don't know what I was doing. I might have snorted too much pre-workout beforehand, but my goodness, I did not think that Zhu Kangxie was as good as he is going into this fight. I said he was a low volume striker, and I said he could get out wrestled. That is what I was seeing on his fights, and I don't know what's happened. He's just made rapid improvements, and I think he's going to win the whole tournament now. Tatsuya Ando is a bantamweight that fought at the tournament at featherweight because I think he thought he was signing up to bantamweight, and maybe language barriers or something like that kind of put him off. But I mean, like, Zhu Kangxie just dominated the fight, man. He just absolutely destroyed Ando. Ando has a chin on him. If you watch any of Ando's fights at One Championship, he goes to war. Man, no one's ever gonna knock out Ando, I'll be honest, unless Zhu Kangxie just took his chin. Zhu Kangxie, before the fight, said that he wants to fight Ilya Topuria. Ilya Topuria might have to count his days after that performance, I'll be honest. Zhu Kangxie, he's coming, man. I think he's going to be able to beat Shin Haraguchi. I was so impressed by that performance, man. He's absolutely massive for featherweight. He's going to be the much better striker out of him and Shin Haraguchi. I think he wins the whole thing. I mean, I think Zhu Kangxie, just in general, is going to be a prospect to keep your eye out for. You're going to see him in the UFC at some point, for sure. And speaking of fighters you're going to see in the UFC, in the bonus fight, the bonus Dana White's Contender Series style fight, Wang Tiong defeated Paula Luna. And she looked amazing, to be honest with you. If you guys don't know who Wang Tiong is, she defeated Valentina Shevchenko in 2015 in kickboxing, and has now transitioned over to MMA, and you could almost kind of say that she is the woman's strawweight version of Alex Pereira coming to MMA and then hunting down Israel Adesanya, because I genuinely believe that Wang Tiong could make a run in the UFC, and I'm being genuine when I say that. She is 32 years old, but she's pretty big for the weight class. She showed us some really good grappling in the fight as well. Now, Paula Luna isn't the highest level fighter in my opinion, but Wang Tiong did what she needed to do, absolutely dominated her. She now officially has a UFC contract, and I would expect to see her in the UFC sometime soon, because she didn't really take any damage. And I feel like she's so good, the UFC could potentially give her a little bit of a push. Like, maybe even give her a really big test in her debut, like against Ariane Lipski or something like that. With a win, she could maybe go up the rankings. I think she's that good. She beat Wu Yanan as well in the past, and Wu Yanan is a former UFC fighter. So she's already proven that she's UFC level. I think she just definitely proved it against Paula Luna. And now to move on to episode 2, the tournament fights. Dong Huashang defeated Priya Sharma. Dong Huashang, in my opinion, she was the pick to win the whole thing, by the way, but I actually think that Dong Huashang could have had a better performance. I didn't think that she looked amazing. Maybe she was nervous or something like that, but she just looked pretty low volume and didn't really go to her base, which is wrestling, but maybe it's because Priya Sharma's a pretty decent wrestler. And as for Priya Sharma, she didn't do what she's strongest at, and that is wrestle. I didn't really see too many takedown attempts from Priya Sharma. For the most part, she just kind of punched air like Aspen Ladd. She just didn't really do much, and Dong Huashang ended up winning a decision on the feet. But in my opinion, I don't think it was the most impressive performance, but hopefully we can see her maybe step it up a little bit in round 2 against Ximing. The next fight was Masudo Kawana taking on Yang Jae-seong. Masudo Kawana is a really good wrestler, man. He is. He has actually represented Japan in wrestling before, and I have seen him on tape wrestle, of course, but he didn't really have as much control time as he has had in this fight, because he was able to struggle. He did struggle a little bit to control opponents on the regional scene, and that's why I did pick Yang Jae-seong to win the fight. But Ultimately, Kawana was just too tough, too good. Song had his moments because he's a very good striker, very good stalking kind of striker, massive for the weight class, big time power, but he ultimately just couldn't really get it done against Masuda Kawana in the matchup. I'm sorry, guys, it's really cold, and I've got a cold nose for some reason. Ming Shi was able to just kind of defend the takedowns against Yadamsio. It was a pretty close fight, but Shiming proves that she's better than I thought she was. I'll be honest, I wasn't really too sure what to think about her because I just couldn't find really any tape on her whatsoever. I think I watched... No, I think I watched one fight from her, but I really wanted to watch this fight against Miao Ding, or Ding Miao, because that was the best fighter she'd ever fought. And I just couldn't really find anything. She did ultimately beat Ye Damsio, who I think is a pretty talented grappler. And we're going to see Dong Huashang versus her in round number 2. And I'm very much excited to kind of see that fight because I was a little bit disappointed by Dong Huashang's performance. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. And then Jibin was able to look pretty good against Yibu Zhali. Yibu Zhali, I just don't know how I feel about him. I think he took on Jibin on short notice. Jibin was meant to take on Hamid Amiri, but that didn't end up happening. So Yibu Zhali did step in on short notice. Yibu Zhali's a striker, and Jibin was just kind of able to get his wrestling going and show that he is a talented striker himself. If you guys are unfamiliar with Jibin, he actually was a big time one championship prospect at some point, but then kind of did lose a couple times, lost in the Contender Series, lost on the first season, of Road to UFC, but I think he's properly back now. I think that Masuda Kawana versus him is going to be interesting. I kind of do lean Kawana from his performance against Yang Jae-song, but Xibing's really good. He's really, really good. Now we move on to episode 3, in my opinion, probably the most exciting episode out of them all. Wonbin Ki versus Tatsuya Saika was an absolute war. This fight did the rounds on Twitter. It didn't go viral or anything, but definitely a lot of people have watched this fight on Twitter because it was so fun. Tatsuya Saika goes out there, drops Wonbin Ki early on, nearly knocks him out, and then Wonbin Ki is able to rally back, get a takedown, and get a little bit of control, and then work his way up, and then all of a sudden, in the last minutes of the round number 1, these guys go back to war, and they're just absolutely bombing away at each other. But Tatsuya Saika, I guess from maybe an adrenaline dump or just poor cardio in general, he gassed out, and then Wonbin Ki was able to just beat up Tatsuya Saika into round number 2. Please sign him to the UFC, guys. I mean, please, UFC, if you're watching this, please sign Wonbin Ki. He's so fun. I understand he's probably not the best fighter in the world, but he's all offense. He's no defense. He's, for some reason, really trying to continue Korean Zombie's legacy with the way and the style that he fights, and I'm all for it, man. I feel like if you gave Wonbin Ki a fight against Triller Peak at UFC 303 on the prelims, fight of the year contender. You gave him a fight against Tom Nolan at UFC 305 in Perth, fight of the year contender. I think that Wonbin Ki versus like any other striker, Charlie Campbell, to someone that wants to scrap on the feet, would just, it's just a recipe for some of the best fights you've ever seen. I think Wonbin Ki's that kind of guy, man. He kind of does fight like Gaethje. I remember him calling out Justin Gaethje when he fought in the tournament a couple years ago. Man, he's fun. He's just so fun. He's so good as well. I mean, he's not the best in the world, but he's a really talented striker, got a lot of power, willing to go to war. I mean, what more could you want, honestly? Let's move on, though, to the tournament. Donghoon Shea did defeat Jinyu Shiwei in a very close decision that probably went in the direction of Jinyu Shiwei, but in that fight, it was reported now recently that Jinyu Shiwei broke his hand, I believe his left hand, in round number 1, and Donghoon Shea was ultimately able to go out there and get the win. It was a very, very close fight that did take place on the feet. Jinyu Shiwei, I feel like he landed more volume in the fight, but Donghoon Shea was able to land some pretty big shots because he is a very talented striker, and even then in moments as well, I was actually quite impressed by the top control that Donghoon Shea was able to get at moments, but maybe Shea stole the fight in like the last 30 seconds of round number 3 when they kind of went to war, and Shea ended up on top a little bit when Jinyu Shiwei failed a takedown, but yeah, close split decision. Really could have gone the other way. I'll be honest, watching it live, I thought it went to Jinyu Shiwei, but I'm not going to complain because I did pick Shea as the underdog, and he did get the win. And I think he's a very, very good prospect, but I don't know if he can get past Angad Bisht. We'll talk about that in a second. Su Young-yu really impressed me against Shohei Noze. Shohei Noze, I did say this in the breakdown, and I did say this in the Discord as we were watching the fights live and chatting in the Discord when they were happening. Shohei Noze's got nothing else aside from his grappling. Unfortunately, he's just a really, really, really aggressive grappler, but he doesn't really have the wrestling to get the fight down to the ground. He doesn't really have very good striking on the feet, but he's just so talented and aggressive on offensive grappling. I did think that maybe he could latch up something against Su Young-yu, who actually entertained the grappling, and that's kind of how I thought that Noze was going to be able to get it done, because I just thought his aggressive grappling style would be a nightmare for Su Young-yu to deal with, but Noze just made a lot of mistakes, I guess, maybe inexperience, maybe just a little bit too overly aggressive, maybe just stuff that you can get away with against lesser opponents, but like, for example, he would just slide off the back, or he would kind of be happy on the bottom and just throwing up submissions all the time and not really defending anything. And Su Young-yu on the feet was the better striker. He was the better wrestler. And honestly, maybe he was even the better grappler. He's definitely the smarter grappler anyway. But yeah, you won the fight. I was very, very impressed. And I think that he's going to put up a very good fight against Zaru Parsi and maybe even beat him. Angad Bisht, after watching this, I think he wins it all. I think that we're going to see another Indian champion come out of the road to UFC tournament. Angad Bisht, this guy's for it. This guy's for real. This guy's legit. There's a lot of tape out there on him because he did fight for Matrix Fight Night, which is a fantastic Indian promotion. And all of his losses are at featherweight. You know, he's fought at featherweight before, lost at featherweight, and then must have found a nutritionist or just gotten in really good shape or something like that. And now he can fight at 125, and he's massive for 125. And if you look at him, man, this guy's built just like me. Like, he is absolutely ripped. And you can just kind of see that he was so much bigger than John Dave Almanza in the fight. And I understand that Almanza is a small flyweight. He's an inexperienced guy. I think he's like 20 years old. And he probably wasn't the best opponent in the world. But Bish, like, on the feet, wasn't really too phased with what Almanza was bringing him. And then he just kind of picked his shots and landed everything. Landed bombs in Almanza. Closed up one of Almanza's eyes with only 2 strikes. And then got the fight down to the ground. Almanza, being the grappler that he is, was just too content to be on the bottom and wasn't able to defend the ground and pound that Bish laid on him. And he ended up winning the fight. And I'm thinking if Bish goes out there against Dong Hoon Che and decides to get takedowns, I think he's going to be able to get them. So yeah, give me Bish actually to win that fight. I think he wins the whole thing. Daiomisi Zaru Parsi, in my opinion, had a somewhat disappointing performance, but I think it was mostly due to Reno Zaki being a lot better than I thought he would be. To start with, Reno Zaki, all of the tape that I saw from him was in a ring, and it wasn't against wrestlers, people that he didn't really fight against people that wanted to take him down. So I didn't know if his takedown defense would be good enough to deal with Daiomisi Zaru Parsi. And it really was. He had very good takedown defense, especially for a small bantamweight, because I do believe that Reno Zaki probably could make strawweight. Not strawweight, sorry, men's flyweight, if he maybe had a nutritionist or something like that. I was very, very impressed, though, by his movement, especially in round 1. If you watch that round number 1, you would think that he's probably one of the better bantamweight strikers on the planet, because, man, I'd never really seen movement like that before. He was moving side to side, giving Zaru Parsi no option to set up takedown attempts, allowing Zaru Parsi to plant his feet and land and bomb away. And Ozaki was tagging him, man. He dropped him. I believe he dropped him twice and hurt him multiple times in the first round and wasn't too overly aggressive, which maybe was to his detriment. But you do like to see that, though, because the worst thing that can happen sometimes is fighters get too overly aggressive on the ground, chasing a finish, and then they get reversed and stuff like that. And Ozaki didn't want the fight on the ground. Zaru Parsi in the second round, though, was able to start getting the takedowns, was able to start landing shots on the feet because Ozaki did slow down. I wouldn't say he gassed out, but all of a sudden that movement, that side-to-side movement that he had in the first round wasn't there anymore because he was slowing down. He couldn't move like he did in round 1 because all of that movement and all of that running, I guess you could say, really, really does take a toll on him, and he did slow down, and then Zaru Parsi was able to wrestle him and get moments and get control time on the ground, but I think that Zaru Parsi didn't look amazing in this fight. And I think that Su Young-yu, I feel like he's got a good chance of winning, but I'm going to have to look into it a little bit deeper. And then when round 2 rolls around, I'll do my predictions and give official predictions. But yeah, for bantamweight, I think that the winner of Su Yu versus Zoe Pasi probably wins the whole thing. Then we move on to the women's fight. It was a women's flyweight bout was the bonus fight of this one here. There was a cancelled fight, but I'll get to that in a second. Yan, oh, okay, I'm definitely gonna say her name incorrectly. So I think it's Yan Shihui or Yan Shihi is how you pronounce it. I'm really sorry. Against Lisa Kyriakou. It is a split decision, but in my opinion, I don't think you can give the fight to Lisa. Yan didn't look as good as I thought she would. I did think she was going to be able to get the takedowns. She did get a lot of them, but like didn't really. I mean, she's 25-4, and I'm kind of thinking, the record like that, you almost can't sign her. You almost can't not sign her to the UFC. You know what I mean? But I do think that she definitely could have looked a little bit better in the fight. She's a wrestler. She likes to control on top. She was able to do that, especially earlier on into the fight. But as the fight did progress, she did slow down a little bit. Wasn't able to get the finish that I think she was trying to get as well. Getting a little bit aggressive there. Was at a striking disadvantage against Lisa, who was significantly taller than her. But ultimately did win the fight. I do think she did do enough in the fight to win the fight with her wrestling and top control. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like you should sign Yan Shihui to the UFC because she's 25-4 at the end of the day. But yeah, I really wouldn't mind seeing her fight again on the show or even fight on the Contender Series or something like that. But yeah, I feel like she is UFC level though. That's the thing. So there's definitely nothing wrong with signing her to the promotion. But I did kind of think that with the fact that she had a very competitive fight and had a lot of success against Karine Silva on the Contender Series, and I know this was in 2021, but she still was able to take down Karine Silva in the first round of control on top and find success in that fight before ultimately losing. And Silva's now going to be a top 10 fighter soon. She's on a massive win streak in the UFC. I kind of thought, man, like, that performance has aged so well, and she just defeated Ding Miao, who was a very experienced, very good fighter out of China as well recently. In the first round, I was like, I think she can go out there and beat Lisa, and maybe she could be like Wang Tiong, who I was talking about before, but I don't know, I'm just not sold on her, unfortunately, anymore. I think she's still a very talented fighter, definitely a fighter I would love to see in the UFC. A lot of experience, but be interesting. Once again, just kind of a good performance, but not as good of a performance as I did expect. Tokitaka Nakanishi, my boy. If you know, you know. I actually wanted to see Tokitaka Nakanishi on the Contender Series this year, and they've put him in the tournament. So I'm very happy to see that. He did defeat Kyu-Sung Kim. Kyu-Sung Kim's kind of a weird sort of striker. Sorry, guys. If that makes sense, where he's like very, very stiff, very, very rigid, kind of what's the word? Very square, I would almost say. Like he kind of keeps faced and he keeps his legs pretty tight together, and he's kind of slow. He was a striker that had a lot of success, and well, not really a lot of success in one championship, but he had fun fights. He's a good striker. He's a powerful guy. But Tokitaka Nakanishi is a grappler, and ultimately he was just able to outgrapple Kyu-Sung Kim. Kyorusen Shihota took on Yin Shuai in the next fight at flyweight. And I did pick Yin Shuai to win, but ultimately Yin Shuai just didn't really do anything aside from wrestle. And Kyorusen Shihota is a very aggressive striker, a very aggressive wrestler in his own right as well. And I was saying in the Discord, I felt like the winner of this fight was going to be able to progress not too difficultly, if that makes any sense, into the round number 2, because now they're going to fight Royal Panales, who is 5-1 but quite inexperienced. And the thing about Royal Panales is he just doesn't wrestle. Like, he just doesn't really know how to wrestle. He doesn't really know how to defend takedowns. A very, very good striker, throws a lot of kicks, but that's kind of it. And I feel like, Kyorusen Shihota should find a lot of success in the wrestling in that fight. So I do think Kyorusen Shihota, you're going to see him in the finals here. Yin Shuai just didn't do anything aside from wrestle, didn't do any damage, didn't really get any submission attempts going. That was kind of it. And then the main event, I feel like I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but I believe it's Jinu Salai Beijing defeated Li Yonfing, and it took him nearly 3 rounds to do it. Li Yonfing, I just wasn't sold on him, man. I just really wasn't. He's been losing fights to guys with losing records, but you do need to consider the fact that it was a short notice replacement. He was actually meant to take on Katharaja Garza, who's a former one championship fighter. He took on Li Yongfeng on short notice and had a good performance, but didn't have a great one. Was able to use his wrestling, was able to use his grappling, got the submission. Defeated a decent opponent recently on the regional scene in Xavier Alawai. But yeah, I just don't know. I'm not too sold on him either. I feel like maybe Tokitaka Nakanishi, my boy, might be able to make it to the finals, but he's gonna have to take on either So Young Yu or Dayumisi Zawapasu, who are very, very good. To get to my new predictions on who I think is going to win the whole thing, just at the end, I'm sorry, this is a 25-minute video, so thanks to everyone that's made it all the way. I was on Dong Huashang. I wasn't that impressed by her performance against Shama. I'm going to switch. I think Feng Xiaokan is way too big for the weight class. She's going to be so much bigger than Matono, who's a woman's atomweight. 5'3" wrestler, but I think that Feng Xiaokan is going to be way too good on the feet. So I think we're going to see her progress to the finals, and she's going to have to take on Ximing or Dong Huashang, but I think it probably will be Dong Huashang. So Dong Huashang versus Feng Xiaokan is the finals I'm expecting for one strawweight, and I'm going to pick Feng Xiaokan right now, unless I see a very impressive performance out of Dong Huashang in round number 2. For men's featherweight, I think the winner of Shin Haraguchi versus Zhu Kangxie is going to win the whole tournament. I mean, I like Masuda Kawana, I like Jibin, but I think Zhu Kangxie, I mean, it's only one fight. Only one fight sample size of how good this guy really is, but he's got the experience under his belt. Looks so good. Trains at the Shanghai PI as well, which is just an elite training center, truly elite training center. I think he's going to win the whole tournament. But if Shin Haraguchi beats Zhu Kangxie, I do think he probably does beat Binji or Jibin and Masuda Kawana. But I think Zhu Kangxie is genuinely giving like future champion vibes, man. Like, this guy is so good. I cannot understate it enough. I think he's going to be able to. But the problem is though, Shin Haraguchi is just such a nightmare matchup for anyone because he's a world-class wrestler. So that's kind of going to make things a little bit difficult. I do think Angad Bisht is going to win the tournament at 125 pounds. I think his wrestling is going to be too much for the talented striker in Dong Hoon Chae. But I do think Angad Bisht is going to be able to go out there and defeat him with that wrestling, with that grappling. I'm pretty confident it's going to be a Kirusin Shahota versus Angad Bisht one. But if somehow Ruo Panalias finishes Kirusin Shahota or just wins the fight, I really like Angad Bisht, but I think that we're going to see a very fun fight between Sin Shahota and Bisht, but I do think that Bisht is ultimately going to be able to get it done and win the tournament. And then for the bantamweight fight, I think the winner of the whole tournament ultimately comes down to Dayumisi Zawipasi and Su Young Yu, because I do look at my boy Tokitaka Nakanishi. I think he's going to be in the finals. I think he might beat Jinu Silai Bayaging. I'm so sorry, that it's not the easiest name to pronounce, unfortunately, but I think Tokitaka is going to make it to the finals, but I just don't know if he can beat Su Young Yu. He's just such a talented grappler, and Shohei Noze is a guy I rate highly. I don't think Shohei Noze is a bum in any range. I actually think Shohei Noze is incredibly talented, and I think a win over him is very impressive. And Dayumisi Zawapasi, we've seen bad cardio out of him before. We've seen him out-wrestled before. We've seen him gas out. We've seen him outstruck by Renazaki. Yeah, I like Su Young Yu, man. I think Su Young Yu's going to be able to get it done. And then that's it. That's all for weight classes. I'm just yapping. That's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.